I'm excited about tonight. For those that do not know, my name is Latanya Thompson. I am the Purpose Authority Coach, and we'll be starting very shortly. So, as you come in, if you can just say what city, state you're from. The reason why I'm excited is with all that's going on in the world, I feel like it's important for us to find a way to be positive, to find our purpose, and to find our voice. And so tonight we're going to talk about identifying the educational need that is in your neck. And so when we talk about this, it's not about race at all. What it is about is people not being provided a fair chance and opportunity to receive an education. About people about people viewing certain people a certain way and not being provided a fair opportunity. So let me just go back a little before we actually bring in our guest speaker. So the reason why I started this, identifying the need that's on your neck, is when I began to look at what was going on, and as I began to focus on what I actually saw, I began to get angry and upset. And to be angry and upset is not healthy for anyone. And so I had to find out, how do I make it work for me? A lot of times we don't know why we're angry, right? And I'm not just talking about the obvious reason, I'm talking about going deeper. Like, what is going on that's causing you to be upset and on a different level? And so when you think about what's actually going on, right? So a lot of us are upset, but why are you upset? And what are you going to do with your anger? And so for me, it was important to give people a platform to speak, to educate, and to look deeper, to look at all the areas in our lives where there is a knee on our neck. And so whether it be domestic violence, whether it be education, whether it be in your home, in your community, in a relationship, or on a job, it's important that you understand that there's a knee on your neck and how to remove it. And so on tonight, as I bring Tamika in, because she's here, hold on one second. As I bring Tamika in, I'm going to read her bio, and then we're going to start. So her name is Tamika Macheyle. She's an inspirational motivator, author, educator, advocate, and lifestyle coach, and founder and CEO of Girl Unplug. Girl Unplug is a platform for women to disconnect from the world and connect with God. Women in all things outside their comfort zone. Tamika, do it again. I did it too quick. Miss Tamika earned her Bachelor's of Science degree in Communication Management and a Master of Education in Counseling, both from Wilmington University. During her college years at Wilmington University, she had a desire to empower women. Okay, there she goes. The one area she knew she could help was by teaching them how to disconnect from their past and connect with their purpose. As a motivator and coach, Ms. Tamika offers women extraordinary experience by equipping them with the tools and techniques needed to elevate them to be more than a conqueror. Ms. Tamika helps everyday people fly to their destiny by focusing on their core purpose, regardless of their current situation. One of the reasons why I brought her in on tonight is because not only of her education and her success, but her love and her passion for the system and for children. I felt like it was important for someone to speak about it, not only as an African American woman, but also as a mother, as well as someone who's involved in the educational system. So at this time, I'm going to hand it over to Tamika, and I'm going to allow
Hi.
her to elaborate, and then we're going to go into actually asking her questions. As we start, if you have questions, please post your questions in there. I'm on my phone as well as my tablet so that we can address your questions.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. I don't know why I'm not why you can't see me. I don't know what I did wrong.
Okay.
Um but thank you so much for having me on tonight. I am extremely excited. So, as Latanya stated to everyone, this is like my passion. This is like I want to say, one of the many purposes that God has given me. Um, and I know she just, gave my whole entire bio. I am a purpose identity strategist, but outside of that, I am a family crisis therapist inside the schools. Um, so when Latanya actually introduced the topic to me about identifying the knee in your neck, and she stated that she wanted to spread this as a journey to talk about different topics, and we actually were speaking about just the different things of how we can really identify the knee and the neck. And I said, well, one of the things, education is definitely an area that I am very passionate about in terms of identifying that, the educational knee and the neck. And so one of the things I actually shared with Latanya is basically, when I think about everything that has happened over within the last week or so, I think about George Floyd, and I think about, did you say something?
No, accident. Continue going.
Okay, yeah. I think about George Floyd, and I think about how the cop was basically suffocating him. And what I looked at in terms of comparison was how we, and when I say we, I'm speaking broadly in terms of the education system, um, is actually suffocating our children, our African American children, inside of the school walls. And when I say that, what I am specifically talking about is, I'm trying to take my time with the topic because I'm just so passionate about this. But a lot of the things that I have seen in my years, I have been in the education system now for my daughter is so about 16, 17 years. I've been inside the school walls. And a lot of the things that I've seen, I'm just going to give you a very synopsis in terms of my career uh, with one story so you can understand where I'm coming from. So when I was put inside the school, I was at a school in Prince George County, Maryland. And when I was at Prince George County, Maryland, basically what happened is I was the professional counselor for pre-K through sixth grade. Inside those school walls, we had 99% of the percentage rate of African American children, boys and girls, with the 1% being children of the brown biracial race. So out of that, we had three Caucasian teachers. And when I was in that school, it really shocked me the large percentage of children that we had within that felt inside the walls of having an IEP. And if you don't know what an IEP is, it is an individualized education plan. And also, they fall in the perimeters of having a 504. And a 504 is basically a legal binding document for students that has or is taking any type of medication. So your ADD or ADHD students could fall into those categories. And so basically, I was in charge of that, plus with giving counseling, plus making sure I was monitoring behavior. But one of the things that was profound to me is every Thursday, I will never forget this. Every Thursday, I spent countless hours inside a room with other professionals that dealt that the list goes from psychologists, myself as a counselor, special ed coordinator, you had the special education teacher, you had the teachers that kind of basically went through the revolving doors in terms of the exchange of students. And one of the things that I noticed is that the parents would come to these meetings and they would sit there and they would be pretty much not in disbelief, because honestly, they didn't understand the jargon, the words, the vocabulary that was being thrown at them. So if someone said, "Hey, this is your son Jerome, and Jerome has we see here that he's having concerns with behavior. So what we're going to do is go ahead and create a behavior intervention plan. So one of the things that I noticed is that I would sit there and I would observe the parent just to see their body language, just to see how they would how they would respond to everything that was thrown out. And one of the things that I noticed is that they didn't respond, that they didn't say anything. And so that's when it was eye opening to me. And I didn't understand again what God was opening me up to see him. And so at that particular time, I remember countless times I would leave. I would sit in this room on Thursdays. From our school day started at 7:20. I had to be to work at 7:20. We spent from 8 a.m. to about two, a little bit after 2 o'clock in the afternoon in this room, revolving parents and students out in terms of the exchange of speaking with the parents and the professionals in terms of the individualized education plans for these students. It shocked me to the point that not only did the parents not understand that was giving to them, the information that was being presented to them, and they didn't have any questions, they didn't have no suggestions, but also what was very profound to me is that no one really took the time to break down the language. So to me, that started to bother me, and I didn't understand why. So a lot of my first years inside of the schools really experiencing this was more so questions than anything else. And then one of the things that I remember I did is God has spoke to me and was like, start telling these parents to speak up in these meetings. Start telling them to ask questions if they don't understand. Because I was the person that would walk down to the main office to pick up the parents and walk them to the room where we were having the meetings. So from the time that I picked them up from the office, I said to them, listen, I would pause them in the hallway and I said, I just want to say this to you. If you don't understand something, you don't sign anything. And because one of the things that the schools have to do, they have to have the parents' permission or the guardian's permission in order to proceed. And so when I what I noticed is that this was really affecting our children and parents in terms of the education system. So that's where it all began for me. I just wanted to put out a foundation of my background and where God had took me from in terms of understanding the process and why he had me experiencing this, because now I'm not going to say I'm angry, but I'm just very highly passionate when I talk about things. And then to be even more authentic and honest with you, I have two children that have IEPs and I have one child that has a behavior plan. So I didn't know that God was giving me all this experience in order to show me what I was going to be soon up against. So I just want to state that. And you want me to go ahead or you want to ask me something?
I'm going to ask you a question because you play dual roles. So
Yeah.
not only are you part of the educational system, you're
Mm-hmm.
also a parent.
Yes.
And so one of the things that you stated was a lot of the times parents are signing something without a full understanding of what they're actually signing.
Yes.
So, what are some ways that they could, first of all, like what are some questions that they could ask and how to ask them to get clarification so that they don't feel like the person's going to be condescending to them, or they don't feel like they're going to be treated like they're uneducated, or that they're part of the problem. And the reason why their child is having this issue is because of their education.
Well, so I will say this. One of the things that one of my goals is to make sure that every parent that I come in contact with, that they are educating themselves. So some of the things that I did myself, besides the fact that I was in the school and I knew basically the inside and out, I still did uh, uh, a second studying, a secondhand studying, because I wanted to make sure that I thoroughly understood every type of behavior plans. I wanted to see what other states was using. I wanted to see what other parents may have gone to or going through in terms of going into the school and maybe being seen as being combative and things in that nature. So one of the things that I would highly recommend for parents to do is definitely go to, when you go inside the school, I would ask to speak with the special education coordinator and ask her to give you what they call is the oh my word, it's like the policy and the procedures in terms of the special ed instructions. And so they give you like this whole booklet, but this is the thing, they don't give you the booklet, the IEP handbook, until you
Okay.
come there, until you actually come into the room. And one of the things that I always said, isn't this something that parents should have prior to coming to the room? Because in that booklet, it gives you your rights. It tells you how, like, if you go to an IEP meeting, and let's just say they say, well, as a team, we came to the decision based upon the data that we collected that so and so has been identified as, being a child
Okay.
that has a, I'm trying to say, like, think of anything. It is a child that has a behavior concern, and maybe a child that also falls in the guidelines to have a learning disability, right?
Yeah.
So then from there, basically what happens, if they say that to you, you have the right as a parent to say, well, I understand that's what you came to terms with in terms of your psychologist doing, raters and qualifying and collecting all of the data between me, the teacher, and yourself. But I
Okay.
want my child to go to actually his doctors. I want him to get qualified from a doctor's perspective.
Okay.
And that was one of the things that I always found myself like basically always going back and forth with them. You're not a doctor. You're a school psychologist.
Okay.
You're different. And so I would always recommend for them to do their research online. I would always recommend for them to ask prior to even going to the meeting. I would ask for the special education handbook.
Okay.
And so therefore they can read their rights, because you can always basically go against what they are saying. You do not have to accept just because they gave you raters. And what raters is basically a series of questions that you just fill in the little bubbles in terms of asking you questions, how you perceive your child's behavior inside the home. So they give that to the parent, they give that to the teacher, and then the school psychologist does his or her job in terms of identifying certain things. So I just want to say I would always do my research at home. That's number one. I
Okay.
would Google like never before. I would also not only Google and go maybe on different Facebook channels in terms of seeing how you can collaborate with different mom groups or parent groups that is with children that has disabilities. But I would take it a step further, and I would just do in addition research of maybe contacting my doctor and asking my doctor's office, where else can I go in terms of my state to find out my rights as a parent when it comes to my child being identified with a particular disability.
Perfect.
So mhm,
I have another question, and I
mhm,
want to kind of like shift for a minute. So
yeah,
we're talking about education, and we're talking about the IEPs, and we're talking about the process. And I
mhm,
kind of want to take a step back because
yeah,
as a kid, let's just be honest, our children spend a lot of time in school. Um, and they begin to look up to teachers. And I know when I was growing up, my parents value the input, the opinion of a teacher highly. I can remember my mom saying, she has her education, you need to get yours. And so I feel like sometimes the teacher wasn't fair or didn't understand me or had her own unresolved issues. And a lot of times teacher put a imprint on us and we can perceive it a certain way. And so what relationship should we have with our teachers or our children teacher and our kids? How should we observe them, the interaction, to make sure that something is not being said that's going to be detrimental? Like maybe the need that was in our child neck was, you're not smart, or you're never going to be able to get it, you'll always be behind. like, why can't you get it? I said one time, you're going to be in a special ed class, or, making them feel like they're less than at a young age, right? We're talking about like preschool, kindergarten, first grade, second grade. So by the time they get to third grade and into junior high and high school, they've had this picture painted on them, right? Because the teacher is standing in front of a whole classroom of people. So it's not like a one on one conversation, it's something that's being said openly. And so, as a teacher and as a parent, and being a child yourself at one point, what information, recommendation would you give parents in regards to their children to be interactive early on with the teacher and the child to ensure that there's not being a knee put in their child's neck?
Okay, so I'm going to answer this the best way that I can, right?
Okay.
Because when we talk about how can a parent kind of build a relationship with that teacher and have an understanding of who the teacher is and what is that teacher's best practices inside the classroom,
Okay.
there's a couple of things. So I'm going to say, before I get to the suggestions, I want to say sometimes the knee can be in our child's neck when it comes to a classroom.
Okay.
It's because of the fact that the teacher that is inside the classroom may not be best the best teacher for that particular school and or the classroom, right?
Okay.
So because what happens sometimes is, depending upon what school your child goes to, sometimes what happens is that the teacher that is inside that classroom may be the teacher that unfortunately may have had let's just say bad reviews.
Okay.
It could be a teacher that the district or another school said, I no longer want this teacher, put that teacher in this school. So now this teacher really doesn't have the experience in
Mm,
terms of managing uh, the classroom, right?
okay.
So, and it could just be because, see, I want to say this. I'm not here to shoot down teachers, first of all. I just have experience where, and different types of schools where I've seen teachers walk in the door and they may have 12 years of experience in a classroom. But teaching is not for everybody, and everybody can't teach in all types of different sectors of different schools.
Right.
So I might be a good teacher, but I may only be a good teacher for children that has no behavior concerns. I might be a good teacher, but I may only be a good teacher for students who can listen to my instructions and do as I say do at all times. I'm not a teacher that can redirect. I'm not a teacher that has patience. I'm not a teacher that has empathy. I'm just there to get a paycheck, and not only to get a paycheck, but also to make sure that I get my seasonal vacations. So you got to be cautious in terms of just because someone is highly certified. And let me
Right.
just also say that sometimes the person that's in your child's classroom is not highly certified. Sometimes schools do get long-term subs. Sometimes schools do hire paras to be inside that classroom because they can't find no other teacher to come inside that classroom. So your child is now left with someone who's not highly qualified, someone that may not have that much of experience inside a classroom by themselves. So these are all the things that happen sometimes inside the school walls without
Yeah.
parents understanding, and I say without parents understanding and or familiarizing themselves with who is teaching their child in classroom. So me as a parent, this is what I have always shared with other parents. The first rule of thumb is I always made sure that I would email the teacher prior to open house, because well, here in Delaware where I'm at, most of our students go back at the end of August, and
Okay.
where some other states go back in September. And so my rule of thumb is I give my child that first week of school, because the first week of school is typically not a full week. So I give my child that first full week. I let the teacher send home her welcome letters, her hello letters. And then that following week, what I do is I email the teacher and say, hi, Mrs. So and so or Mr. So and so. My name is Miss Hill, and I am the parent of XYZ. And I just wanted to um introduce myself, virtually introduce myself, just so you know who I am. And I just want to let you know, and hit in advance, that if you see my child, if you have any concerns for them, maybe it's that they're seating, maybe it's their attention's off, maybe it's you see them talking and they're not paying attention. I make sure I make myself available to them in the beginning, because what I don't want to happen, and what I have seen happen, is that most teachers will wait until November to say something to the parent about their concerns about the child. So that's number one. I would always introduce myself well before the what I call the open the welcome night. I think it's called the I
Back to
can't
school night or
yeah, the
parents'
back
night.
to school night. Yes, the back to school night. I would always introduce myself well before the back to school night. And then when the back to school night comes, I make it a point, because normally the back to school night teachers really don't want to have like a one-on-one conversation with you.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is that they kind of just do a general presentation to let you know who they are and what their standards is. That's nice and that's sweet. I need you to know who I am now. Because, see, I already introduced myself via email.
Uh-huh.
Now I'm going to introduce myself face to face. So she could, he or she can put a face to the name. And so then I say, hi, Mrs. So and so. I am, Kennedy's mom. I know I sent you an email, but I just want to introduce myself again. How's Kennedy doing? Okay, great. Well, again, if you have any concerns with how she's learning, or if you don't feel like she's getting anything, please do not wait until November to contact me. And I
Yes.
say it just like that. Because what I need parents to understand is you have to be specific. You
Yes.
have to be specific, and I'm going to share with you why. If you're not specific with that teacher in terms of introducing who you are in the beginning, and you don't make that face-to-face contact with them
Yes.
on back to school night,
Uh-huh.
right? And you don't, I always try to tell parents, make yourself understood. Let them know your expectations of them head on. Because when you don't make yourself well known, and you don't provide them with with expectations of, in terms of who you are and what you're expecting from them, then that's when the channel of communication gets lost. And then you'll say at the when you have your first teacher parent teacher conference, what
Mm-hmm.
happens is that they'll end up saying, well, Kennedy, yeah, she's been struggling with reading and math. And then you're like, for me, I'm like, so why did you wait until November? Because if you remember, I introduced myself to you via
Mm-hmm.
email. I introduced myself to you again at open house, and I made it very clear to you, or back to school night. I made it very clear to you, if Kennedy is struggling, do not wait until November to tell me that my child is struggling. Because what happens now, that's lost time. That is lost. That's like
Yes.
6 weeks. By the time a child starts school until November, and until like November, which is pretty much like the first marking period is about to end, that is 6 whole weeks that your child has went, and the teacher has went without providing you any information in terms of interventions could be done in between that time frame. You could go get your child any type of support, tutors or
Yes.
whatever in that time frame. So I always say, be specific in
Okay.
the very beginning.
And this is good information. I remember a teacher I had in the fifth grade. Like, I literally remember her name. And for legal purposes, I'm not going to say it. And I
Mhm.
remember us having this assignment. And I remember me pouring my heart into it. Like, I knew I was going to get an A. Like, I just knew it. And I remember getting a piece of paper back. And I remember, like, my heart being crushed. And I remember telling my mom, like, she marked the whole paper up and she ended up giving me like a D minus. And it wasn't for grammar. It was, I don't even know why she did it. And so more than that hurt was the hurt when my mom says that paper was a good paper and she was wrong. This is personal, but she never went up to the school to address it. So
Mm.
as a kid, I felt like even if I'm right, there's no one that's going to back me up and support me. There's no one that's going to go and fight on my behalf. And there was nothing to justify my grade because it was personal. And if there, it wasn't grammar. So if there was anything else like, well, you didn't understand the sign, but she, I mean, it was, there was nothing communicated. And as a African American teacher, not that she owed me anything, but as a teacher in general, I feel like there should be some communication that takes place. I also feel like as parents, we need to remember what it's like to be like it, what it was like to be a student, and how they, you know, they had their favorites, how they had some that they
Mhm.
picked on, and
Yep.
how it feels like when you don't know to struggle and not know where to go to get the answers, even as a kid. And so I feel like it's really important, like you indicated in the beginning, have that communication relationship with the teachers early on, so that the parent has no reason for saying they couldn't communicate with you or they didn't know how to get in contact with you. But most important for me, make sure that you have your children back, because I know people like Lisa Nichols. There's some other people that are like, you know, famous in their own lane, and they have said like, I got a D in English, or I was told that I would never be anything, or I was told I'd be lucky to be a secretary, and they are millionaires. But what would have happened if they would have took the words of those teachers and allowed them to be the words that they live by? And so, as a parent, you have no idea what the teacher is saying to your child and how that's impacting your child. I'm going to say
Mhm.
this and I'm going to hand it back over to you. Let's
Mhm.
think about if we've ever had a friend or a girlfriend or boyfriend and we ever have been hurt in a relationship, we take that hurt into the next relationship and we make people pay for the hurt someone else did. And as much as we try, it's hard to let this wall down because we've been hurt. Can we all agree to that? Can I get some yeses in the comments? If you've been hurt and it's been hard for you to trust or let someone in, whether it be a friend, whether it be a significant other, as adults, right?
Yes.
How much do you think it impacts a child to be traumatized by the words of a teacher and to feel less than and to have to continue to go through school, push past what's going on inside of them and everything that's coming up against them? And I don't think as parents we take into consideration. We're quick to say that, you know, sticks and stones may break your bones, but words don't hurt. Whatever they said, right? Words do hurt.
Mhm.
Right?
Yes.
I'm still dealing with some words that was spoken over my life as a kid, right? And so I just want us to make sure that we are in our children's life and that no voice and no words hold more weight than the words of their parents. No teacher, no principal, no counselor words should hold more weight than your words when your words are healthy.
Yes. Yes.
So I have another question for you.
Sure.
So let's go a little deeper.
Yes. Let's.
So we're gonna I'm gonna ask a question, and this question is related to African Americans
Mhm.
and specifically males. We had a conversation and we talked about it being a formula or data that's gathered. And with this information that's gathered, they began to prepare for the likelihood of where this child will be as an adult. Do you mind sharing what data is collected? And from my understanding, it's only on African American males. And though they're preparing for our children's future, what they're preparing could have been prevented had they taken and provided other resources. So if you can touch on that.
Yeah. So yes. So okay. Let's talk about the 14th Amendment, right?
Okay.
The 14th Amendment was basically put in place um, because it was a clause that stated that, it was the equal protection clause,
Okay.
um, which hold that, no state can deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of law. So, meaning like we uh, being if there was one at one point in time where everyone was it was schools were segregated, you know, and so
Mhm.
they wanted to move it to desegregation. So because they want to say we are equal, but we're not equal. I just want to
Yeah.
let you know, still today in 2020, we are not equal.
No, we're not.
I see it with my own eyes every day. Um, in the school, outside of the school, speaking directly to your question about the boys. Yes, boys basically are already stated. It's already data is collected in terms of behavior, attendance, and their academic achievement. They compile that data to say if a child will be successful. More prominently, African American boys will be successful um, in the schools, or they'll collect the data to say, well, if an African American boy by the third grade, behavior is not together, attendance is not together, and their academic achievement is not above and or meeting right on base in terms of where they should be at, then they are building jail cells for that African American boy because they feel that that boy will never live to be successful academically, behaviorally, in any way. He will not be able to hold a job because he can't even come to school. So they build jail cells based upon Black boys, African American boys, not being successful by third grade. And that in itself shows you that still today they collect that data.
Mhm.
So therefore, where is the 14th Amendment to say that we are equal? Where is the 14th Amendment to say that we are equal? Because I can specifically state to you that at the school where I'm at, thank God that I'm free, right? And I say that because what I'm about to tell you, it doesn't matter who hears it, right? Because I'm stating the facts. And I know that I'm protected by God. So at the end of the day, the school that I'm at, we bus children all the way from an opposite side of town, okay?
Okay.
All the way to where I'm at. That ride is probably a good, I'm going to say 15 to 20 minutes. They pick up kids, what I call on 4th Street in Delaware.
Okay.
And they bus all these kids over to 100 West 18th Street. The reason why they do that is because what happened is that these kids on 4th Street was going to a more a school that had a lot more Caucasian children in it.
Mm.
And so what happened is that these kids on 4th Street were identified through survey that their behaviors, they had problems with their behaviors, their academics was below, and their attendance was poor. Well, let's bus these kids all over to the other school on 100 West 18th Street. Let's put all these kids in one room or in one building. So all the behaviors, all the poor academics, all the poor attendance can be in one room. And not only that, let me just state this. I am in a school with kindergarten, first, and second graders.
Okay.
And it's not just, and even though I'm talking about my school, it's not just happening in my state,
No.
and it's not just happening in my school.
No.
Let that be told. I have kindergartners walking 20 blocks, maybe a little less, but these babies are 5 years, 6 and 7 years old, walking blocks and blocks away from the school because their bus was taken away from them 2 years ago. So when you talk about we're equal, I want you to tell me, and I want anybody on here to tell me, what Caucasian children do you know is walking 12, 13, 14 blocks to get to school? What children do you know that's Caucasian is inside? They get bused all the way across to from one side of town to the other side of town because they have been identified of having behaviors, poor attendance, and poor academic study. What school do you know that Caucasian kids go to, and they get the teachers that are basically not um they're not teaching well. They're not structuring themselves in terms of making sure that they are there for all kids. They're coming out of Teach for America, may I say, for a better lack of term. They have teachers that come from Teach for America. When I talk about Teach for America, I'm not putting them down. But what let me just make this very well known to you. Teach for America, when I was at my school and in Prince George County, Maryland, is when I found out about the program Teach for America. And what Teach for America is it gives others opportunity
Mhm.
to work in urban schools, is what they like to call it, urban schools that have children that cannot that's not academically on level. They're not on their academic level, and they may have behavior concerns, and they live in poverty. Let's just say it, they live in poverty. Okay, they put the Teach for America teachers in schools like mine, for an example,
Mhm.
and these teachers don't have no experience. They don't even understand what they're up against. No matter how much Teach for America teaches them, they're not well they're not well how can I say, they're not intellectually well to be able to interact with our children. And so
Mhm.
what happens is, I'll never forget this. I had one teacher when I was in Maryland that was crying, a Caucasian teacher, and I said, "What's wrong?" She was like, "I don't know. I just can't deal with it no more." I said, "Well, why don't you go to another school?" She said, "No, I can't." I said, "Well, why can't you?" She said, "Oh, I can't go to another school because if I was to go to another school, then Teach for America won't pay for me to go get my law degree, my international law degree in London." In London. I said, "Oh, that's what Teach for America does?" Wow. So again, um when we talk about the statistics in terms of how they compile the data to plan for jails for our African American boys, I don't hear equality in that. When again we talk about the knee and our neck, this is
Mhm.
how they are suffocating
Mhm.
our black and brown boys. And let me just say, not just black and brown boys, because when we talk about behavior concerns and we talk about the academics of our African American girls that are now struggling and having behavior concerns just as much as the boys, and they're having poor attendance too, they are now building a negative viewpoint around our girls in terms of they will never be successful. So I want to say this, that we have to be careful what we speak over our children.
Mhm.
We have to be careful that we're not speaking death. And when you hear the media, when you hear those that are above me and they are superintendents or they are Department of Educations all across America, I want to talk about how they are speaking death on our children. I
Yes.
want to talk about how they are putting a knee in their neck and these kids cannot breathe because it's already with low expectation that I'm going to succeed. It's already with low expectation that I'm just going to go to jail. So why should I come to school every day and learn? So you want to talk about trauma? You want to
Mhm.
talk about how this traumatically affects my ability to be able to function inside the school walls? Well, let's just talk about what you're speaking over our children before they enter the school wall. That's just like being in bondage. That's just like being in slavery. So at the end of the day, there is no equality inside of the school walls. So yes, I'm so happy that because of the George Floyd's unfortunate death, that now we want to wake up America and we want to say, yes, let's go for all. But let me just be honest with you. We had those conversations and we had those protests many of years, and we are still in the same situation. So what is going to be any different today, tomorrow, or forevermore if we continue? Because we talked about, Latanya, about the mindsets, and I remember even having a conversation with my father and understanding that It's the what's the root of the problem? Where
Yes.
is the root? We got to pull and dig up the root if we want to
Yes.
make a change, because protesting to me is surface stuff. That's just the surface. But let's talk about digging up the root and putting some actions inside of the school wall, changing school policy. That's dealing with the root. That's
Yes.
dealing with the root. And until we start changing the way we speak, changing some of the laws that we have embedded inside of our within our policymakers,
Yes.
we're not going to see a change.
No, we're not. This is good because even as you talk, it's interesting that they would say that. I mean, you gave one example where they were going to a whole nother area school district to bus children in because the children in the area that they lived in didn't want them there. And so they said, well, we don't want them here. We'll have a bus come and take these kids to another area where they fit in, and then there's people on their level, right?
Right.
And at the same time, then the ones that needed it said, we're going to take your bus away. If education is that important, figure it out. Why would you put a knee on their neck when they're African American and you already know that the attendance is going to impact them and have the possibility of them ending up in juvenile or jail? Like this, like we have the money, we just need to redirect it. And it's funny that if you have this data, how hard would it have been to go a little deeper to find out what is the real issue? Because if the child's not going to school, it's because the child is hungry. It's because the child has to babysit other children. Like, why isn't the child going to school? And what resources does the school and the community where that child live at provide to this child? Because anytime a child is bad, being bad is not the problem. It's the result of a problem. If they're acting up, could it be that they don't know how to read? They don't know how to write. They not educated, and so instead of you making me feel bad, I'm just going to be the class clown. Could it
Hmm.
be that my anger is I don't have a fair chance and I'm fighting for an education that you're giving somebody else? Could it be that I went to bed hungry last night?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Find out why I'm angry
Yes.
and stop labeling me as a problem.
Yes.
And don't tell me you don't have time to do the
Yes.
research
Hmm.
when you're running data and you've already identified that I have a problem. But the problem is not me, it's the system.
Yes.
Have you ever wondered what it's like to grow up and not have a father? Or to walk past up and down the street and he got other kids that he's been a father to, but he ignores or denies me? Do you know what it's like to come home and have to play the role of a daddy because there's no man in the house? Or for a man to be in the house but disrespect you and your mama and you can't say or do nothing? Like, do we really understand what's going on in the house? And why haven't we given them help? They're innocent children. They're innocent children. But it's easier to say we're going to build a jail for your future versus saying we're gonna get you a big brother. We're gonna get you some vouchers. We're gonna get you a tutor. We're gonna get you some help. We're gonna get you a counselor. We're gonna get somebody to walk you through this so that you don't repeat a generational curse, that you have a fair chance. It's not fair. And we might say, well, you know what? It's not me. You know, I'm not black. But you're not concerned with the knee in somebody else's neck. You're not concerned, though it may not be education, it may be another area, and you're going to want us to stand with you. And it's not about color, it's about doing what's right and giving everybody a fair choice. When we got here, we was this color. We didn't hand select it. We didn't pick it. It was given to us. And with it came a whole lot of other stuff that we didn't ask for. And it's not fair that we got to work twice as hard because of the color of our skin and that we're labeled as being angry. We're labeled as being a problem. But have you asked, why are we angry? Why are we mad? So if your kids have any type of problems in school, find out what the core is. Go deeper. Find out what's really going on. We don't know what it's like to be a young man and not have a daddy, and him not to want to do anything with you and be a part of your life. And so I'm asking you guys to connect with your children. So if there is a knee on their neck, you're able to identify that they're having trouble breathing, that they're having trouble dreaming, that they're having trouble stepping into who they're called to be, that their self-esteem and their confidence is not where it's supposed to be. Look at how they change and interact with a new teacher. If the teacher's not always right. And can you imagine what it does to a child to hear that you believe the teacher over me? And I'm not saying that there's some times where the kid has not did something, but you got to do it child by child, and you've got to do your due diligence. Roll up your sleeve, show up at the school, and support them. Support your child. Okay, Tamika, I'm gonna hand it back over to you because I got excited and I went on a whole nother rabbit trail. And
No, you're right on point. You're right on point, and I would definitely say yes. Not only support your child, but also be active. Be overly active is what I call it, because sometimes we can be active in terms of being engaged with our kids by asking them how their day was, or checking in with the teacher. But what I also understood is that being a mom of six, and having my one child who did have a behavior concern, or also had an IEP because of her academics. What I understood is that I also had to do my own system approach when it came to making sure that I was on top of her IEP, making sure understanding like what interventions and support systems was supposed to be in place, making sure that even though they put it on paper, that also means that sometimes they're not following through what they're supposed to do. I've seen it with my own eyes, where your child's supposed to receive speech maybe once or twice a week, and basically that calculates to be, let's just say 30 hours, whatever. Well, I've seen where they don't provide the child the counseling, the speech therapy, and whatever else, until it's time for their meeting to come up, and then everybody's rushing around to make sure that they compile their notes, and then they have it ready to present at the meeting. So I've seen it. Yes. Yes, exactly. You have to stay on top of things,
yeah.
because I'm that parent that I'm going to question you. I'm going to ask you, what tier level is my child? Well, a lot of parents don't even understand to ask that, to ask about the tier levels, because the tier levels will actually identify, and it will let you know where your child is academically and if they are in need of supports. So there's just so much to the education, the internal education process, that a lot of parents know a little bit out of, but they don't really know the in depth. And so that is my goal. That is one of my goals. In terms of what God has called and blessed me to do, is to make sure that not only am I staying on top of mine, but I'm also staying on top of those that are before me. So I just want to say, pretty much, like, you touched on, really good, we touched on very good objectives when it comes to the African American children inside the school walls, when we talk about their IEPs and we talk about the kids. But I also want to just touch briefly on even understanding that we as African Americans can also be what I want to call, we'll be in different positions inside the building. And so what happens is, sometimes when we want to move to the top,
Mm-hmm.
we start putting blinders on and not seeing things,
Mm-hmm.
because we want to move to the top. So sometimes we are just as much as the blame as our white counterparts. And it's sad to say, but it's the truth. And sometimes the truth hurts, but we have to take responsibility for what we are not doing right.
Yes.
We have to take the responsibility, even as a parent. What can I do better?
Yes.
Maybe this school year I didn't do my part as well as I should have. Maybe I didn't stay on top of my child in terms of in the home, or maybe I didn't stay on top of the teacher to make sure the teacher was doing this and that. So we also kind of have to do a self evaluation
Yes.
and a self check monitoring system in terms of, okay, what am I supposed to do today? When
Hmm.
is my child's meeting? Okay, it's 6 weeks into the into the marking periods. Okay, let me check in with the teacher to see where my child is, so I know I'm setting the interventions and strategies and support systems in place. So when we go through the next 6 weeks, we can say what worked, what didn't work, and or uh what we need to change, because that's another thing, Latanya, that we put these kids, they put these kids in these vicious cycles, what
Hmm.
they call like the tier, it's like the tier process. And so what the tier process is every 6 weeks they are supposed to do some type of strategy or intervention with the child. And then if that intervention, technically, if it's not working, they probably give it like 12 weeks. And if they don't see it's working, then they need to change it up. Well, some parents don't know to ask that. And so what happens is that the teacher will just keep on doing the same intervention, and nothing's ever changing. But sometimes what happens is that if that child is not in that classroom because of behavior, it's just like, listen, I can't worry about that child. I got to worry about the 10 or 15 others that want to learn, which is
Hmm.
not right, because now you're putting the knee in that child's neck and you're suffocating that child from
Yeah.
being prosperous into their calling, which, it's just, again, it's just so much about this topic that I could talk about for hours, but time is limited. But I do want to just end this and just say, parents, the school year is over now, right? Because that's just the way that in terms of our states, they have justified that a school year is only but so many months, right? But I want to say, as a challenge to the parents, still continue to do your homework. Still continue to make your child read, make your child do some math, because also the stereo, or I could say like the data, and not just the data, but pretty much the statements that is being thrown out is that our kids don't do nothing in the summer.
Hmm.
So now our kids are regressing. Right now they're going through a regressing. So a regressing period, because it's the summertime. So by the time that they come back to school in August and September, then they're pretty much going to be back behind, and we as a teacher gotta keep, catch back up. We gotta catch them back up. And so now we are spending 6 more weeks to catch them back up. So I always say, give them something to talk about. Give
Hmm.
them something to talk about. Allow your child to come back to that school and not show not a level or an age of regression. Allow those teachers to see them on point. Allow those teachers to see them still where they need to be when they walk in the door. Because I always say is that I'm not here. You can talk about me all you want to, but
Hmm.
at the end of the day, I know who I am and I know whose I am. I know that my child are children of God. And so at the end of the day, we have the power to speak not just life over our kids, but to speak what we want our kids to be, and or who God has called our kids to be. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if they want to use the statistics to build jail cells, but allow them to build the jails to allow them to be empty. How about that? Because you're speaking life on you're speaking life on your child as they're building the jail cells. But as they're building the jail cells, you already interrupting the dysfunctional statements and jargons that they're putting over our children. So at the end of the day, I say that devil is a liar, and you do not have any rights to my children. And so when we start counseling those things over our children's lives, and we start counseling not over or only on our children, because I believe that I'm responsible also for the kids that I come in contact with. And so when I have a child that has a behavior concern, I might be walking down a hall holding that child's hand. But let me tell you what I'm also doing. I'm also praying over that child. I'm also speaking life over that child. And I'm telling that child, what do you want to be when you grow up? Who do you want to be? You can be anything that you want to be, anything that you set your mindset to. Because let me tell you, it doesn't matter if you can't read today, because who's to say you can't read tomorrow or the day after?
Yes.
So I just want to say that it doesn't matter. Let's disrupt the dysfunctional discord
Yes.
inside of the school system, because we can do it as mothers. We can do it even if you're not a mother, because you are responsible for the children on your block, in your community, in your church, in your town, wherever that you come up against, and you put yourself in the presence of a child, and that child comes over to you. Yes, we cancel the curses over the lives that has been spoken to that children. So, and just also just to piggyback off when you said you don't know if that child didn't have sleep didn't get a good night rest. Plenty of my kids don't get home cooked meals when they leave our school. Matter of fact, their only meals is breakfast, lunch at the school, and sometimes we got to send them home with a bag of food. So at the end of the day, I just want to say, no, we don't know what the kids is up against, but we can speak into their future. We can offer them a snack. We can go ahead and actually take some of them under our own arms and show them the way that they should go, even if
Yes.
they don't have a positive role model. Yes, we don't know if some of the kids are. I have a lot of kids that are in foster homes. I got parents and families in foster homes, are in shelters right now, because of the simple fact that they just need someone to help them. They need the disruption of the we talk about mental health, but I believe in spiritual health. Let's talk about their spirituality. Let's start speaking into them and allowing them know that the doors is open to the church. Give them a Bible, give them a word, give them affirmations, give them something that they'll be able to lean on, and understand that they don't have to lean on their own understanding. And I'm just going to end it right there because I can keep on going.
I'm excited. I posted in the comments and I said, ask yourself, what can I do? It's not
Yes.
enough for us just to talk. It's not enough for us to say that we're angry or we're frustrated or we're tired. What are we going to do? So even if you don't have any kids, do you know someone with a child or children, and you know that the mother is struggling? You know that the children are struggling. Can you assist them in any type of way to remove the knee that's in their neck? It doesn't matter that it's not your knee. What matters is that you have the power and the authority to remove it, and that you can make a difference in someone else's life. It's time out from us pretending like we don't see things and not wanting to be involved. These children are our future. And let's just be honest. If they do go to jail, what are they going to jail for? And how does that impact our community and our lives? You want to be safe? Safe comes in us coming together as a community and say, if we educate, empower these men, and they become successful and the jailhouses are empty, that means our streets are empty. You have the power and the ability to make a difference. If it's I got 1 hour on a Saturday to tutor, to do anything, to pick up, to drop off, to encourage, to coach, what can you do? You owe it to them. And though you may not have done anything to these children, let's be honest. You've had your knee in somebody's neck, or somebody's had their knee in your neck, and you wanted somebody to remove it. The Bible says that we reap what we sow. And if you wonder why you can never get ahead, if you wonder why no one ever helps or assists you, the real question is, have you ever got out of your comfort zone to be to somebody what you were looking for? Or has it always been about you? I'm telling you, there's been days that I have not wanted to coach or to encourage because I felt like I needed to be encouraged. But it was in those moments that when I provided them their answer, their help, that what I needed was what I gave out. Could it be that what you really need is going to require for you to give of yourself? We don't have to be selfish. We either have children, nieces, nephews, grandkids, cousins, or friends that have children. If we could just change life, one life, one life. I'm not asking you to change the world. I'm not asking you to change the state. I'm not asking you to change your whole city. I'm asking you to come in contact with one person and change that person's life, because you have the ability and the power to do it. If you're really tired, if you're really fed up and mad and upset, do something with it. Let your passion push you into purpose, because we have been discriminated against. And when I say we, I'm not talking about a color. I'm talking about age, color, sex, for no reason. For no reason. For no reason. At what point do we say enough is enough? Get your knee out of my neck. Get your knee out of my neck. As a kid, you knew that if one person had a fight, everybody better jump in. Because if one person lost, we all got in trouble. How can you stand by and watch somebody lose and not have compassion to jump in and do something, even if it's just to remove the knee? We have to do something. George would still be here had somebody did something. It's time to do something. It's time to do something. Tamika, as we come to an end, from the bottom of my heart, thank you.
Thank you.
And though we're friends, you're here tonight because of your heart, your passion, your vision, and your assignment. It's not your degree, it's not your success. It's because who you are as a person, and you play dual roles, and you have refused to ignore what you have seen. And for that, I commend you.
Amen.
I
Amen.
commend you, because you could have been selfish and said, it's not my child, or I removed the knee from my child's neck. So as his mother, it's your responsibility. But as a teacher that knows what's going on and sees what's going on in the world, you decided to risk it all, not knowing who would
Yes.
see and what the outcome would be.
Yes.
You felt that my voice matters more than the consequences, because
Yes.
it's not about me.
It's
It's
not.
about innocent children who don't have the ability to remove a knee that is in their neck.
Yes.
And so I'm going to have you give them their contact information, your contact information. So if they want to reach out to you, if they have more questions, if they want to have a separate conversation in regards to how do I get involved in my children's life? What does that look like when it comes to the school? How do I make it right in the summertime so I can give them a fresh slate when school starts back? How do I build my child back up? What do I look for? Because when we end this Periscope, we're not ending the conversation.
No.
We're not ending the conversation. We're in this. We're in this. Until knees are removed from children's necks. This
Yes.
is our assignment. His dying will not be in vain. Not on
Yeah.
our watch.
Yes.
So whatever you can do to remove the knee from someone else's neck, do it. And if there's a knee that's in your neck, let someone know so that we can remove it. If I don't know
Yes.
how to remove it, there's someone that I know in my community that knows how to remove it. And even if there's four of us that have to get together because we know bits and pieces, but it's enough to remove the knee from your neck, we'll do it. So
Yes.
Tamika, we're both excited. We can go on and on. So I'm gonna have you let them know how to contact you, give any last insights, information that you think that they need to have.
Yes. Well, I wasn't going to share with the world, but God keeps nudging on me to share. So as Latanya stated, and as you kind of heard tonight, this is my passion. This is my baby. This is nothing about me. This is nothing about my kids. I've seen thousands of kids that needed someone to be able to speak for them. I've seen parents that don't know their left from their right when it comes to their educational rights. So God blessed me with an amazing opportunity for me to open my nonprofit. Um, I actually sat on this for years. And if it really wasn't for um, a friend of mine who actually pushed me, I probably wouldn't even been approved for my nonprofit. I got approved for my nonprofit in 3 weeks. I've never heard of anybody getting approved for their nonprofit in 3 weeks. So that was my confirmation that this is all God. So the name of my nonprofit is COVID Agency. And what COVID stands for is Restructuring Education Development. So what that means is that I am an educational advocate. I advocate for kids and parents. I provide education to parents to be able to support and to be able to support and to be able to advocate for their children when I cannot be with you. One of the things, I'm just going to say this real quick so we can end, but I've been advocating for my niece who's all the way in Ohio. I've advocated for a child that is in New Jersey. So one of my goals is to be able to go around the world and to be able to support parents inside of their children's schools when they have meetings, regardless if it's IEP or if it's just parent teacher conferences, because I want to be that voice of wisdom for you. I want to be able, if you don't know, then I know. So I just wanted to say that. And then I also want to say you can contact me by all social media platforms. It's Tamika Macheyle on Instagram, Tamika Macheyle on Facebook, and Tamika Macheyle on LinkedIn. So you can always DM me. And I will definitely get back with you. So I'm just so excited. I'm so grateful. I wasn't going to share about my nonprofit. I just got approved this week. And it was so funny because I called Latanya. I was like, oh my word, I got approved for my nonprofit because I didn't know what the paper was trying to say to me. And I was excited to receive it because now not only does this topic give me another just of a confirmation in terms of what I am called to do and why I'm here, but it's just an eye opener. This is like a conversation that needs to be on all channels because these are some of the conversations that are a lot of my teacher friends or just teachers, period, are scared to talk. They're scared to speak because they don't want to lose their job. But I'm that one because I know that I'm a child of God, that He protects me. And then when one door closes, another door opens with full opportunity. So I just want to share that. Please reach out, contact me if you have any questions or you know friends that have any questions. Pass my information on, and I am here to help.
Thank you. So once again, I'm Latanya Thompson. I'm the Purpose Authority Coach. Continue to follow me on Periscope. I'm on Facebook under Latanya Thompson. Connect with me on Facebook. If anything has come up on the inside of you, once you send me a friend request, send me a private message on Messenger. You can also send me a private message on Messenger. I will reach out to you. I will respond directly to you. Again, we're here for the journey. We're not walking out on you. And so, as if you have a child, reach out to Tamika. As a parent, if you need help, reach out to Tamika. If you have unresolved issues in your life, call me. I will help you get that knee off your neck. Have a blessed evening. Stay tuned. We'll be back next week. And we're talking about identifying domestic violence, the verbal knee on your neck. Okay. So we're going to be doing them back to back. Every need that I identify, there will be a Periscope that we will talk about it, discuss it. Please share, ask questions in the comments. We're here to support you. Have a wonderful evening. We love you. Thank you. Bye-bye.